What's up, everybody? Hey, this is the next installment of the Bullpen coming your way. Now, I got to address the elephant in the room. You're like, hey, Claude, you said that when you launched this thing, every month we're going to have a new episode. I know. We're going to get into why that took so long, but we got a special one today. We're going to talk to the Matthews campus pastor here at Elevation Church, Philip Wagnon. I call him P-Wag. And we're going to talk about a lot of things in just 45 minutes, but we talk about change and what it looks like to change. We talk about calling and how do I know if I'm doing what God's called me to do? And then we also talk about culture and what is culture? And is it just a place that I go to, or is it something that is developed? So we get into all those things. No matter where you find yourself in life, there's something in this episode that's going to help you take a step forward to doing all that God has called you to do. So episode number 3, welcome to the Bullpen. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bullpen.
Let's go.
Is episode number 3. I know we've taken a little bit of a break. I told you every month we would release an episode, but June, July, and August and September at Elevation Church. Pretty slow, right? No. Very busy. And I think I underestimated, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. He is not lying. I was talking with some of my team and I was like, I think I blacked out over the summer because I've been trying to remember, like, what did we do?
The last memory I had was May, and here we are in October. I don't know what happened. But we have, our church does a lot of amazing things over the summer.
Awesome.
We have Youth X, we have Love Week, we get people connected to e-groups and e-teams and Block Party and all that stuff. So that's
also like Staffella. Opportunity for pastor to come in and speak to staff and invest in us. And like, it's a big event for us to be able to receive vision from him. So it's just like a lot of things stacked on top of each other.
But that should mean that we'll have a lot to talk about today. That should be a good
We
thing.
Will. If we want to talk about all that, I just told you I blacked out. I don't remember it.
So we're back. And Aaron and I, off mic, we're just talking about what we even have planned after this one. So the Bullpen is back in regular rotation, but today we got a special guest.
Trying to bring it back strong.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good point. I couldn't just bring anybody back for like the return of the Bullpen. It had to be like top of the line.
But we got history.
We do have history. Yeah.
It's like, I have you on my podcast. Next thing I know.
Is that how, like, does it work like that in like the podcast, like music world? Like if you did a feature on my song now, do I have to return the favor?
We got to do favors
for
one another? I don't know. It probably should, but mostly like you just want that exposure.
Yeah.
I'm just not good at that.
Yeah. Well, I call him P-Wag, but this is Philip Wagnon. You may know him as the Elevation Matthews campus pastor.
What's up, y'all?
But more than that, husband, father, and you also have a podcast. You should tell the story real quick of how I got on your podcast and how spontaneous that was.
Okay, so Claude and I are getting ready to do a teaching on ministerial ethics. You have no idea. This guy is a theologian over here. And so they asked me to tag along with Claude to do this teaching.
Yeah, right.
And so day before we're chatting about, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going over some notes. And I was just like, hey, I do a podcast. You should like hang out and do it with me tomorrow.
Yeah, no, legit.
Really, that's what happened. And so we do a teaching. He jumps into the podcast, one of my most viewed ever podcasts.
Are you being serious or you're lying right now?
Of course it is. 100%.
Hey, fact check that audience after this.
It's got to be. Had a great time.
Yeah. And then, so what you guys don't know is that I had already been feeling like, man, I feel like I want to start a podcast. Like for years, I felt like that. But just fear and feeling like I don't have not that I don't have anything to share, but that people wouldn't want to hear what I have to share.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to build my own brand or my own thing. So I kind of just let it, like, it would rise up in me, and then I would just like push it away or let it go. And then when you told me that you were doing a podcast, I was like, here's another Elevation campus pastor. He's doing it like that. You really inspired me, bro. So I want that's the same day I texted Aaron and I said, I did Philip's podcast in Matthews. We're doing a podcast. Or I think I asked him, have you ever produced a podcast? And he said no, but I'm willing to figure it out. And here we are.
I think like right after that, Camilo, who produces my podcast, is texting with Aaron.
Yes.
It was like this full circle, just trying to get it off. What's crazy is how many people, and we could actually talk about this a little bit more once we get into our topic, but how many people walk through life with a dream and never act on it?
Well, let's just
never step up, never do the thing, never choose to go after it. And it takes a little bit of courage to step out and say, hey man, I got this. Cause that's what it was for me.
Yeah. Well, can you share, I want you to share that story of how like you decided like, I'm going to do it. Well, and what you told me about who you reached out to and all that stuff.
Okay. So, at the time, I had been wrestling with feeling as though God placed something inside of me. And as a campus pastor, a lot of what we do is use our voice to lead people to cast vision and direct the way. And I always felt like, man, God's placed something inside of me, but I don't know if people want what I have. I had leaders in my past who told me things that would make me start to believe that what I had to say was not valuable or that nobody wanted to listen to what I was going to share. And so I just internally started to wrestle with this insecurity. Well, what happens over time is if you do not act on that, then you become disobedient to what God wants.
Come on.
And you walk through life, it creates insecurity and anxiety because God puts something in there that he expects you to use. And if you don't use it, the funny thing is we would say things like, if you don't use it, you lose it. I actually think if you don't use it, the mental trauma that comes from that, from wrestling with that, so the gift is in there. If you don't use it, I don't think you lose it. I think it creates all kinds of havoc inside of you. And that actually God kind of uses that to force you into a position where you start to use it. So God has to almost get you to the spot where like you have to get this out. Yeah. Because it's hurting you. Yeah, it is. And the thing is, so part of this, we could get into this, man. I've been wrestling with this for a long time, is like what actually causes people to change. Because we would all say there is something about our life that is not currently what we would really like for it to be. Like we look into the future and we say, man, I'd like to lose this weight, or I would like this relationship to actually be better than it is, or I would like to move up in my job, or whatever that would be, right? We would all say I'd like to get out of debt. There's something, I'd like to stop drinking. I'd like to stop wrestling with this addiction. We all have something like that we're struggling with internally, but we just play with those things. And we never do anything about it. So what actually causes somebody to change? And I don't have all the answers for that. Like, the truth is, this is a big question.
What a thing to wrestle with, though.
It's and it's different for different people. The sad thing about it is most people are unwilling to change until they have a terrible situation happen in their life.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Like, so most people talk about losing weight for a long time, but never do anything about it until they're receiving a report that's like, hey, if you don't change, you're going to lose your life. Like it's bad right now. People walk through their relationships like that, where they know this thing has got to change, but they don't do anything about it until their wife is walking out, or whatever.
Until you can't ignore it anymore.
And so that moment creates enough tension inside of a person that they have to change. Like they're forced to change. Either their relationship is going to change, or they're going to say, no, I'm tired of living. I'm sick and tired of living this way. I'm sick and tired of putting up with the anxiety that I'm wrestling with that is inside of me, where I feel like I've got something to say, but I'm not opening my mouth. I'm not sharing what I feel like God's placed inside of me. So I got to that point.
And then that's when it was like, when you decided, all right, I'm going to get this out. I'm going to do it.
Well, what's interesting is for me, because I didn't have to get to that point of like, oh man, something really bad happened. It birthed out of me fighting to strengthen my relationship with God. And I know we're a couple of campus pastors and we're supposed to talk about this. Like, yeah, I totally get it, right?
Somebody's like, I heard this in volunteer rally this weekend.
Oh, yeah. That's why he brought him on.
You're the first CP, though, that I brought on.
Dude, let's go.
Come on, man.
So I was in this place where I was dealing with some of this tension inside of me, but that was like coming from a place of, man, I gotta dig in and develop my relationship with God so that I can discover absolutely everything that he has for me, right? And so I started to press into that relationship with him. Here I am. Okay, this was 4 years ago, something like that. And I was a pastor at Elevation Church on staff here in a position where you feel like, oh, we should have it together.
This is it. Yeah.
People expect that we have things together, right? That we know what we're talking about, that we don't have fears, that we've actually. But I'm so grateful for our pastor that leads in a way where he's vulnerable and he shares. These are the tensions that I've walked through. These are the things that I've had to navigate through. Absolutely. And so as I pressed into relationship, and I'm talking about getting up early to spend time with him and prioritizing that. We
just talked about this.
Yeah, like I'm talking about not coming to lead a volunteer rally and needing to start from scratch to figure out what am I going to talk about. No, like I needed to start speaking from overflow.
This is what
because
God is already.
I was convicted. I started praying things like this. I'd be praying to God. God, let me be known as a person who has been with you. I heard the voice of God. He said, people will know you as someone who's been with me when you spend time with me.
Oof. I would say that again, but I don't know if you can repeat it the same way.
People will know you as someone who spends time with me when you spend time with me. Yeah. It was like, oh, do the thing that you want. That's what affects change in your life. Be the thing that you want. Right. You may not see the results. You may not see the end goal. You may not be able to see all of the change immediately, but start to be the thing that you want to see in your life.
Yeah. And along the way, God will help mold that and shape that and guide that and direct you. And as you take a left turn when you should have taken a right turn, he'll course correct. But you've got to start walking in that direction at some point. And that's really like the essence of Pastor's like latest book, Do the New You, is that whole thing of like, do the thing that you wish the best version of yourself would do. Like you can do that. You have that within your grasp and your reach. And as you do those things, God will help guide you and direct you, you know?
Oh, yeah. And actually, like, I was reading his book. So tail end of last year, I was getting to this place where I was like, okay, God is really speaking to me. The only way you hear the voice of God is if you spend time with him. And so he's speaking to me. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and start pressing record. Yeah. I've been watching Pastor doing his stuff. He's like, I just want to put myself in a position where I'm hitting record and I can get it out and I can start speaking.
And then he has stuff to share out of overflow.
Yeah. So I'm watching him do that. I'm like, you know what? I just need to start hitting record and doing it. So set up to do our podcast. This was before Pastor's book was released, and I had an advanced copy reading through it, and I got through the first section there.
I had an advanced copy, but go ahead.
well, we're campus pastors. We all did, you know.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
I was on the book launch team or whatever. You know, it's like fun to be a part of. It is an advantage for us.
Site flex. I had my advanced copy, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I finished this section, shoot Pastor a text just to say, "Amen." Well, I didn't say it.
I was about to say, did you say it like
No, I did not. I did not say it like that. But I was like, "Hey, I've been reading through this your book. Just got through the first section. Let me tell you this specifically. This is speaking to me, and I have always wrestled with this anxiety. And I'm reading your book, and it is telling me, step out, do it." Yeah. Go after it. And I mentioned, I just feel like I need to start shaping my voice and figuring out how to communicate. So I'm going to start putting a podcast out there. It's really just to be able to practice what God's placed inside of me. And he responded extremely glowing, was like super proud of me for doing it. And it was just a really cool moment to step up.
And that was like, you would say, part of the catalyst that helped you launch your podcast. Yeah.
Without a doubt. And that moment is actually a thing that encourages me. Keep on going.
Yeah.
Keep on going.
That moment right there.
Keep doing something with it. Like you stepped out, keep getting after it. Keep going. Don't stop. And man, it was like, it was life-changing.
Yeah. And then so that was like a catalyst moment for you. And then when I did your podcast, that was the same thing for me. Like I said, I texted Aaron and said, hey, somebody else that's in my, we have the same role. We're in the same world. Someone who's a peer, he's doing the thing that I feel like God has also placed inside of my heart. So for you to step out in faith because of what God was dealing with you, it inspired me to do it, awesome. And hopefully that same chain reaction will happen to somebody else. And it might not be a podcast for somebody out there, but there are things that, like you said, even as campus pastors, someone could look at us and say, man, that's awesome. Like, it's a dream job. And it is, but there's also things that God has placed inside of us that aren't connected to Elevation Church or connected to what we do on Sundays that, like you said, if we don't express those things or at least begin to be obedient in what God is dealing with us, like you said, I don't know if they ever die, but they can be dormant, And
for sure.
And if enough things are dormant inside of us, it has to negatively affect all the other things that we touch,
Yeah, and we're really crafty in the excuses we use to hold back from actually stepping out and doing the courageous thing. In Christian world, we say all the time, I'm just waiting on God.
Oh, I'm so glad you started talking about this.
I'm just waiting on God, which I had my world was rocked. I was actually listening to Erwin McManus talk about this. And so I started to dig into it. And people will say that. It's like, okay, pastor's message all the time is like, hey, God's going to place something on your heart, but you need to do it.
Right.
You need to act on it.
Just like his book. God didn't write the book for him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
He had to do it. Yeah. And so people will say, oh man, I'm waiting on God to give me direction to go and do whatever it is. Like, I'm just waiting on him. And this is actually an excuse for inactivity, right? Because the Bible, when it talks, this is so good.
Go. I'm glad you started talking about this.
When the Bible talks about waiting on the Lord, it's actually saying, hey, I want you to wait on me so that you don't retreat, so that you don't fall away. It's like, wait on me so that your strength can be renewed. So this indicates somebody who's actually walking, who's fighting, who's going after it, who's moving a direction, but maybe they're getting tired. Maybe they're getting to a place where they feel like they can't keep moving forward. Maybe they're getting to a place where they feel like everything is coming down on them. And in that moment, God says, wait, don't retreat, don't go back. You need to keep moving forward, and you could take a moment and wait so that you can be strengthened and keep running forward. That's the indication of when the Bible says, wait on the Lord, is so that you can have strength to keep moving forward.
No, this is good,
Not to sit back.
You know what? So recently in therapy, my therapist and I have been talking about this. I've learned and started therapy this year that I have anxiety, or some of my anxiety is around the uncertainty of the future. So I get anxious sometimes when I think about the future or what lies ahead and just whatever. And so she and I have been walking through this for the last couple of sessions that I've been seeing her. And you and I have kind of talked about some of these things like off mic and just like decisions and stuff like that. And so she kind of was like, and I'm glad she said it like this, but she was like, just do something.
Yeah.
Like she said that. Like, and she's a Christian. She was like, and I'm like, I'm navigating between this and that. And I'm just not sure. And it's causing me anxiety. But if this happens and what if, and then she was like, just do something. Yeah. And so we started unpacking this whole thing, and she referred this book to me called Just Do Something. If you're out there, I would recommend reading that book. But there's a section in the book that talks about a lot of our anxiety comes from the place of feeling like we have to hear from God in order to move forward. And it goes on to unpack like, yes, God speaks and God gives directions, but there's certain things that God is not going to tell us to do or tell us not to do. Yeah. And it's this whole idea, without getting too deep, of like, God asks us to walk embodying the fruit of the Spirit and to be joyful and patient and kind and all that different stuff. But as far as like what school to go to, or like what job to take, or like what neighborhood to live in, it's the idea of like whatever school you choose to go to, live in a way that honors God and loves people. Yeah. And so that was so freeing to me, because it's like, God might not answer my prayer on what next step to take. Right. But that's within me to just do something as I follow God. But to your point, I think people get paralyzed in the, well, I'm waiting for God, or I'm waiting to hear him speak. And I think for a lot of people, especially believers, just do something. Like as you do it and as you walk it out, God will lead you and guide you. But if we're going to sit around and wait for him to answer a specific, God, should I apply to this college or this college? Should I live in this neighborhood or this neighborhood? Not to say that those things aren't important to God. And sometimes he speaks and says, I want you at this school for a specific reason.
Yep.
But I feel like I've learned over however long that more times than not, it's you choose and honor me and glorify me when you get there, and I'll lead you and guide you, you know?
Yeah. And you're speaking to calling and stuff in that too. But, people have fear that they're going to make the wrong decision and that God won't bless it or God won't honor it. And I would say well, you have the option to bring God into every decision you make. And no matter what step you take, if you bring God into it, if he needs to redirect it, he's going to redirect it.
And he's bigger than our wrong turn or our mistakes.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
And so that's interesting. It's like, can you make a wrong turn?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Go.
Yeah, you can make bad decisions.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you can't make bad decisions.
Sure.
Let's not be ignorant here.
Yeah.
We can make bad decisions, but can you really make a wrong turn if your heart is to honor God?
Come on. That's good.
If that's truly what you desire. So let's look at Jonah for just a moment. Jonah ran from God.
Yep.
He ran away from the calling of God. So he put himself in position to get away from the presence of God.
Right.
Yeah, that's a bad decision.
100%.
Like you shouldn't do that.
Right.
But what happened?
Yeah.
God completely redirected it.
And gave him another opportunity. Yeah.
Gave him another opportunity. It says in Jonah chapter 3, verse 1, it says, and the word of the Lord came to Jonah again. Think about this. This man went running. It took way, way, way more work for him to go the direction he was not supposed to go.
Right.
But God flipped it. Now, how significant is it that here we are thousands of years later talking about the example of Jonah and using it to move our lives forward?
Right,
I don't think that you can make a wrong turn.
Right. That's good, bro.
I think God, I think he is working all things for his good and for his glory. And yes, we might make bad decisions. And our posture should be, I'm going to make the decision that pleases the Lord, that pleases God. And I'm going to bring him into every decision. So I can go to this job and serve God, and I can go to this job and serve God. And we're not talking about ministry jobs, like whatever.
Right.
If I bring him into it and I choose, I'm going to serve him in either one of those, God will honor that, and he will be glorified through your decision, no matter what it is.
To do that, yeah. Well, first of all, we're going to name this podcast "Just Do Something." That's going to be
just do it.
This episode. This is not at all what we were going to talk about.
Do something.
But I'm glad that we're talking about this.
Can you add in hey, Aaron? Can you come in and add one of those where a screen pops up, do it, do it, do it?
But no, that's
Starsky and Hutch. Isn't that what it is?
But that is such that is such a thing for Christians because, and it's almost like a control thing, a lack of trusting because, and I'll just use myself as an example. There's been so many times in my life where I just didn't want to make the wrong decision that I made no decision.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's godly either because God doesn't call us just to stay still and to stay stagnant. But I think and so if someone's listening to this and they do have a significant life decision to make, if they have a decision on whether, I just keep thinking about college just because in Durham, there's tons of schools around here. So that's a lot of the conversation. Do I go to this school or this master's program or whatever? But if it's education, if it's, do I move away from home and take this job? I'm leaving my family, but it's going to be good for my career. Or do I propose to this person and we've been dating? All these things. And I think that God really gives us freedom to make decisions as we filter it through. Will this decision glorify God? Will it honor him? And can I love and serve people through it? And then including wisdom is flat out, is this a wise decision for me to make? Yeah. Those three things, I think, give us a good lens and a good filter to be able to say, now just do it. Yeah. Do something,
Yeah. I'm probably going to butcher the quote. I was actually listening to Carl Lentz Lights On podcast. And
really good, bro.
Have you been listening to it?
Yes.
Man, it's good.
Talk about raw. And
it's raw, and what he's getting into is so helpful, and the people that he is bringing in is so helpful.
He's actually the next guest.
Oh, really?
Just kidding.
Okay, it's definitely that'll be the come up episode.
You'll see it everywhere.
But he said that he was confronted with this quote that everybody is living the life that they want to live.
Okay, unpack that for us.
because your life is a result of the decisions that you're making. So everything that you experience right now is what you have ultimately decided, this is the life that I want to live. Now the tension is, we all have areas of our life that, like we said before, we want them to change. Well, the thing is, change.
Yeah.
Act on it. Make the decision. Do the thing that you, so let me give you a really practical example of what I'm talking about here. Because culture is constantly being created.
Yeah, there we go. Come on.
In your life, culture is constantly being created. You cannot deny that the decisions you make or the non-decisions you make are creating your culture. Whether that's in your life,
great, bro,
in your home, at the campus, I don't care where it is. Culture is constantly being created. Now that's good culture, that's bad culture. So I went through a little phase where, and I have shared this story before, so my wife won't get mad at me. But I went through this little phase where I started to feel a little bit of a disconnect from my wife. And I was like, man, our relationship right now is not where it needs to be. And God started to speak to me like, hey, you need to start praying with your wife. And I was like, man, Lindsay and I, we've kind of always had strong faith, strong relationship with the Lord, but that's kind of each been to our own, right? Like, it's like she has hers, I have mine, and we're good. We don't intermingle that too much. And I started to feel like, okay, the relationship is struggling right now. It needs to be strengthened, but God's telling me I need to pray with my wife in order to get there. Well, here's the thing. I felt like I had clear direction on that's what I needed to do, but fear kept me from doing it, which is crazy. The enemy will use all kinds of excuses and reasons to keep you from stepping out and doing the thing that you should do.
Come on, bro.
Because we're talking about, this is happening while I'm a pastor at Elevation Church, right? I'm already on staff at Elevation Church. This isn't, we've been married 18 years. I'm not talking about year 2. This is, we've established some rhythms for like 12 years. And here we are at this point, and God is telling me, you need to start praying with your wife. I'm like, okay, all right. Fear is telling me, Lindsay's going to make fun of you if you approach her and ask her. Can you believe that? Now, I share this right now because I know that somebody is going to be listening to this. Somebody at this campus is going to be listening to this. And you right now are thinking about a decision or a thing that God has placed on your heart that you're supposed to do. And the enemy has been using all kinds of weird tactics that in our mind, because of our fear, because of our insecurity, it feels like it's way, way bigger, like it's insurmountable, like we can't overcome it. I want to tell you, step out and do the thing that God has called you to do. So when I approached Lindsay finally, and I said, hey, I really think that we should start praying together. Her response was, oh man, I'm so grateful you said something. I've been praying that you would approach me about this. She had been waiting. God had already primed her heart to be receptive to the thing that I was going to bring. And so ever since then, we pray multiple times a day with the girls now, and it's a priority for our life. And just saying, God, we welcome you into our life. And it's like prayer changes things, but being obedient to what God wants you to do, step out and do it. If not, you're going to experience the same culture. You're going to experience the same life, which is why I would say you are living the life you want to live.
That's so good, bro. Man, you know,
Sorry, I get a little passionate. I get going sometimes.
No, I want you to go, bro. See, you're an experienced podcaster. I can tell. You do this every single week. But before this, we kind of talked about culture and the idea of how it's created and, you know, how we influence it. And one of my favorite, I think you even said it just now, but one of my favorite quotes on culture is it's either allowed or created, but it doesn't happen by accident. You know, there are things that factor into what a culture is. And so let's kind of like live there for just a few more moments. You kind of ended off talking about culture, but I think, you know, even speaking, you know, our context is church, and not everyone who listens will be church leaders or pastors or whatever, but we all have a culture that we exist in. There's a certain culture and feel of our home. There's a certain culture and feel of the place that we go to work. There's a certain culture and feel of, whatever, the things that we get to encounter daily. It's that thing that, and someone might ask, well, what is culture? It's the feeling. It's the way things are. It's when someone comes to Durham, and a thing we get a lot when guests come is like, oh, it just feels different here. Well, to them, it's like a feeling, but I would describe that as our culture, but that's been developed and influenced and all that stuff. So my question for you, and for anyone wondering, like, okay, I heard you guys talking about a little bit about calling and making decisions and direction, but I've realized that maybe some of the decisions that I made have influenced a culture that I no longer want to live in. How do I influence it or change the culture of my job, of my home, of my relationship, whatever? What would you kind of like encourage that person to do, or the process?
I would just acknowledge it's a tough spot to be in. Anytime you're confronted with, either because of decisions that you have made or the organization you're a part of has gone a different direction, or maybe you jumped into it excited, and then once you got into it, you realize, oh man, this is different than I thought it was going to be. It's a tough place to be in. And you really need to do the work to change some of that. Let me ask you this first, because I think this is a key component of it. When you say, hey, when people come to Elevation Durham, it just feels different. Define what that is for me. Define what feels different. Are you able to do that right now and just say, hey, this is what feels different? Go.
Okay. So I'd say the way that we care for people, the way that we see people, the way that our volunteers act as a family. So one thing that we were really big on is that we try not to have siloed teams. So we have our ops team, our production team, our connections team. What's unique, what I feel like is unique to our campus, is that they're all kind of like intermingled. So it wouldn't be odd or awkward if our guest experience coordinator walked up to Aaron and said, hey man, the speakers are too loud outside, or blank. It's just that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I think when people say, man, it just feels different in Durham, that could be one of many things. But I would have a couple of things to point to if someone said that.
Yep. So what's key there is you are able to define what you want. Being able to define what it is that you want in either your personal life or organizational life or whatever it is, actually being able to put your finger on it and define, oh, this is what I don't like. And this is the life that I want to live. That allows you to chart a course to be able to get there. The tough thing is when people are in a situation and it's going a direction that they don't like, most people limit their feeling to an emotion.
What do you mean?
And it's impossible to make decisions when you're to make healthy decisions when you're impacted emotionally. So I got this job and I just dreamed about being in this job, and oh man, this is my dream job. I love being a part of this. Well, then it starts going a direction that you're like, oh, I don't like that part of it, and I don't like that, and I don't like that. Oh, that starts to, and then it gets to an emotional place where you're like, I dreamed of having this thing, and now it's not what I expected it to be.
Disappointment.
There's disappointment there. And so I actually just talked about this the other night at our Serve One worship.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
Okay, let me give you this really quick. Yeah. This is a whole other lesson. Lord Jesus, forgive me, y'all, for like going on some tangents here. But
this is why we're here.
This is what happens. People enter a new phase of life, and they enter that new phase of life with discovery. Oh man, this is going to be exciting. Oh, who am I? This could be really, really exciting. Oh man, what's this going to be? You could apply this to a new job, a new relationship. I don't care what it is. You enter a new season of life with a lot of curiosity and like discovery. Well, after a period of time, you start to define what that is going to look like.
Right.
If you're not careful, you start to become defiant that this is what this is going to look like. This is the way that I'm going to operate in this relationship. And this is the way that I expect you operate in this relationship. Well, what happens is that ultimately leads to a place of disappointment, just like you said. You get disappointed because the thing didn't go the way you expected it to go, and now you're emotional about it, and you're either angry or you're sad, or you're in this place where that thing didn't fulfill me in the way I expected it to fulfill me, so I am disappointed. Here's the danger. Most people, what they will do is they'll jump from disappointment back to redefining their situation. So out of their frustration, they defined their new situation. I got into a relationship, it went bad, I got out of that relationship, and now I understand that people are going to treat me that way. So I redefine relationships based off of the bad way I was treated in the last one.
Cooking.
So that cycle continues and it gets perpetually worse. Right. So I wrestled with, I used this example the other night. I wrestled with, I have a strong personality, which I'm sure is coming through in this podcast.
I couldn't tell.
And I have gifts of leadership and passion for the way I feel like things should be done. Well, when I would come to a situation with a supervisor, all of that passion would come through, and some people wouldn't know how to handle that. Well, I, being a young and ignorant, passionate person, was just yelling things, throwing things. And so it would create a moment where that leader would have to come at me hard, and I would be disappointed. But what I did then was I carried my disappointment into the next supervisor relationship, and then into the next supervisor. And before too long, what I started to do was I built the belief system, and this is the danger. This is what happens. When you do this, you build belief systems based off of disappointment rather than what God intended.
Come on.
So I started to believe leaders are out to get me. It was a belief system. What I didn't know was that it was as clearly defined as that.
Right.
It was internal.
Right.
So every supervisor relationship I had at that time, I started to treat them through this lens, not even know I was looking through that lens. What it takes is the process of discernment. You have got to discern through every situation you have been through, through every conversation that you have had, through every disappointment that you have experienced. You have got to work through the process of discernment to understand, okay, God, what did you truly intend to do inside of this?
Right.
Sometimes when we look through that lens, we look right back at ourselves and we see something that God needs to change inside of us.
That's good, bro.
And that's tough.
Yeah.
That's culture.
Yeah,
That's culture.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to define this thing and then understand, is this something that needs to change about me, or does my situation need to change?
Right.
Most of the time, at least in my life, I've experienced God wants to do something in me. He wants to grow something in me before it can affect the whole.
The environment. Yeah. And usually environments change when the people change.
Yep.
You know, so when people make a decision to say, ooh, either I don't like this or I want to see something done a certain way, as individuals make decisions, we see the culture, we see the environment change. And maybe not even change, but when individuals have a certain conviction that this is how we want this to be, then we see our environment change likewise, you know? Bro, this was great.
Okay, so really, really quick. Let me give an example here.
Go for it.
So let's say we're on the campus, and I joined the greeter team, or maybe I'm on the production team, whatever it is, and I jump into that situation, and I'm really excited to get in, to be able to contribute, use the gifts that God has placed inside of me, and there's all this passion and vision, and Claude gets up there and gets me rallied up, and I'm excited to do this thing. Well, then somebody comes along and tells me, oh, you can't do that. You're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to do that. Or I need you to do this. And it can create tension inside of you. So then you're in a situation where you need to wrestle with, all right, I understand we have a culture here at Elevation Church that is different. In fact, when I first came to Elevation Durham, I was saying, man, I love being a part of this because it's just different. We care for each other in a different way. Like, it feels like the teams actually love each other and want to be together. The people actually, but over time, somehow we replace, man, this place is different with, man, that place is different. I don't know if I want to be a part of that anymore. And it all comes down to, well, are you contributing to the culture that drew you into it? Or are you allowing yourself to be influenced by things that are drawing you away from? The enemy is sneaky about this stuff. We have got to fight to maintain a positive outlook, to still come and bring that same level of passion. God is going to place something on your heart and inside of you where you might be able to identify something that does need to change. Like you might be able to, so I'm not telling you like deny yourself and just do it, like fall in line because we need you to be on that door and pass out that. That's not what I'm telling you.
Identity. I don't know my name anymore.
No. I need you to be you.
Right.
And God's uniquely gifted you to help us all be better.
Right.
We need that, but I also need you to step back and discern, okay, what's the proper way for me to approach this in this season? Is this actually something that I need to address, or is this something that needs to change inside of me?
Yeah.
It's the process of discernment, a skill that I developed a long time ago. And this is the last thing. I'll let you do your thing.
Keep going.
A skill that I developed
You're here
until
8:30 tonight anyway.
Yeah, so. That's right. It was just keep it going.
How about we just show this tonight?
Oh, that's a good idea. Can you turn it out that quick? Just edit it and show it for tonight.
See the culture that we have? No, just kidding.
Any situation that I'm in where I start to have those emotional feelings on the inside, it's like, man, that feels bad. I don't like that. I'm wrestling with anger now or sorrow. Sometimes we are able to easily identify what created that. Like somebody cut me off in traffic and now I'm like mad.
Right. Something to point to.
There's something sometimes you don't know what is creating this feeling inside of me. It's just like, it feels bad. And that's almost like, and so something that God gifted me with the skill to be able to do a long time ago, and I think anybody can do this if you're willing, is to slow down in a moment like that and identify, first of all, I don't feel good. Why? Why do I have this negative feeling on the inside? You need to go through the process of searching your heart, looking back in your past, digging in and figuring out, okay, why is that there? Why is that feeling popping up right now?
Where's it coming from?
Where is that coming from? And then almost hover above yourself so that you can see the situation clearly, so that you're not emotionally connected to it, and start to make decisions and see, oh, I'm upset right now because at 9:00 this morning, Claude said this thing to me and it rubbed me the wrong way. So rather than me going now in my afternoon through my whole entire life feeling like Claude doesn't like me, I've identified that's why I feel that way.
Right.
And then go a little bit deeper if you can. What about that created that inside of me?
Right.
Now that I've been able to identify it, I'm just going to follow up with Claude and be like, oh, hey, man, I'm so sorry. Like we had that conversation. I just wanted to follow up. I'm so sorry. It didn't go the way that I expected to go. I just want you to know because we're in this together.
Yes.
We're all fighting for the same thing. We want it to go. And we're like, when the enemy could separate us and create lack of unity, man, he loves that.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to fight. We're going to make the decision. We're not going to sit in our frustration. We're going to come back together and we're going to talk about that thing, but then really start to dig in. Well, why did that set me off that way? When you start to understand yourself at that level and almost like emotionally detach from it, you can make such better decisions about the culture that you want to be a part of, about how you impact the culture that you're a part of. And then you can start to create, going back, we define the culture that we want to have.
Right.
And at Elevation Church, that's kind of defined for us.
100%.
Right? The writing is on the wall.
But it keeps it clear. Keeps the vision clear.
It keeps the vision clear. So we've defined that, right? Now that we have a clear definition of what this is supposed to look like, now we know how to make the decisions to multiply that.
That's great.
And to go where ultimately we feel like God has created us to go.
That's awesome, bro. Yo, P-Wag. Let's do another one.
I could go on for a while. I just love this stuff. This is what the meeting is going to feel like tonight.
Well, I was just about to say, for the people listening to this, they'll experience this after, but there's a whole group of people coming in tonight, our rising leaders at Elevation Durham, also in something called the Bullpen.
Let's go.
If you didn't catch the theme here, but Philip's going to be teaching tonight too. And no, just grateful for you, bro.
I'm pumped for it. It's going to be great.
Talked about change today, how to change, what change looks like. Talked about a little bit about calling and how to make decisions and to do the thing that we feel like God has placed in our heart, whether we have a clear answer from him or not, but how to move forward in wisdom and discernment and being led by your spirit. And then also talking about the 3 C's. change, calling, and culture.
And
talked about how we identify culture, how it's created, but how we shift it. And I think one interesting thing that you said that hopefully people are going to chew on a little bit is that changing culture doesn't always start with external factors. A lot of times it starts with looking myself in the mirror and asking myself some tough questions. And I think if someone were to take anything from this podcast, I think they're going to be able to take a lot today. But that one thing, like, hey, that thing that I'm frustrated about, that thing that I feel like isn't changing, the thing that I feel like nobody else sees, maybe there's something within me that I need to ask myself, why does this impact me this way? And maybe that is a catalyst to say, maybe as I reconcile this, I begin to change the environment around me. So appreciate you, man. Thank you for your deposit on the, can you believe 45 minutes went by that fast?
I know, it's crazy.
We just turned it on.
I know.
That was awesome. Hey, this has been episode number 3 of The Bullpen with my man P-Wag. I call him P-Wag. So after this, you can call him P-Wag too.
Call me P-Wag.
Call him P-Wag. Hey, it's a Bullpen. Let's get it.